Assalamu alaikum, students. Right now, I am here to explain the topic of cybersecurity. As you know that it is very, very important for us to keep our data safe from intruders, from hackers. And what kind of data is to be kept safe? It could be personal data that you don't want to share with anyone, or it can be the commercial data that can be password or bank details. So we have to be very cautious that what kind of attack can happen. And the very first thing that you need to see is the cyber threats. And what are the cyber threats? First of all, let me go through the cyber threats. The first one is brute force attack. Second one is data interception. The third one is DDoS, which is distributed and denial of service attack. Hacking, malware that includes viruses, worms, Trojan horses, spyware, adware, and ransomware. Then phishing and pharming, and then social engineering. Let me start from the very beginning of brute force attack. As you can see, what normally the hackers do is they try to crack your password and they just try out different combinations. And sometimes the combinations are going to be successful because if they are very good at guessing, then it is, or maybe if my password is a weak one, then they can actually be able to find out my password very easily. So what they normally do is they find out the most common ones. Like, for example, the one that are normally kept by the people are, as you can see, which is not a good option at all. Then it's not the common password list. And what they do is then they start with a strong word list. There is a strong word list that is available, and this word list is actually a text file that contains a collection of words that can be used in a brute force attack. So what the hackers do is, if they are not able to find out, or they're not able to crack the normal password, they just find out a password from a word list. Now, still, if they are not successful, then definitely it means that I am safe. And what should I do? Like, what kind of password should I keep? Definitely, the password should be long enough so that it is not guessed easily. It should be a combination of letters, numbers, and special characters, as you know very well. It should not be something which is closer to my family, which can be understood easily by the hackers. So this is what we need to be cautious about. It's a very simple thing that we need to see. Data interception. It's actually a form of stealing data by tapping into a wired or a wireless network. So if you talk about wired network, it's a little difficult to tap into a wired network as compared to a wireless network. So what we do is interception can be carried out by using a packet sniffer. So what, as the name implies, packet sniffer means it is going to examine the data packets being sent over the network. And the intercepted data is sent back to the hacker. And this is a common method that is being used when the wired networks are being used, when the cables are being used. On the contrary, if I'm using Wi-Fi, so then what actually is being done is wardriving, or another word for it is APM, which is access point mapping. What they do is, in this method, they just they just try to crack a password by being in a close vicinity of a place, and then they try out different options. And in this manner, the person is able to get access to your data. And again, we should be very cautious that whenever we think that something is malicious is happening, something suspicious is happening, we should be immediately changing the password, because this wardriving is something that is quite common as far as the wireless networks are being concerned. Now, the third one, which is very important, is DDoS, which is denial of service. DDoS is denial of service attack. And what is it? It's very simple. What happens is it's an attempt at preventing the users, the legitimate users, from accessing the part of the network, notably internet server. And normally what happens is the hackers or the people who are performing this activity are sending out a lot of requests, and that is going to bombard by a server with a lot of requests, and that results in a breach of security. And the ones the individuals who are actually supposed to access the network are not able to do so. It will not allow me as a legitimate user to access my email, to access the website or the web pages, or access the online services, because of a lot of spam traffic. Now, I hope that you all know what is spam. It is unsolicited emails. Now, what happens is, definitely, I say that a lot of traffic will be there. It is going to flood my network with traffic. So the ones who are actually the legitimate users are not going to access, because of the reason that server can only handle a finite number of requests. And in that case, either my request is not accessed, or it is going to crash the network. It is going to crash the server, and that results in denial of service attack. In a distributed denial of service attack, what happens is the spam traffic originates from many different computer systems, which makes it hard to block the attack. Now, this is something that you can see. DDoS is originating from a lot of computer systems. so that it is definitely going to flood the network, it is going to flood the computer system, and the server, and the legitimate people who are supposed to access are not going to access, able to access their resources, their data. What actually an individual user or website can guard against this attack to some degree by, what should they do? They should be using an up-to-date malware. They should be setting up a firewall to restrict traffic. They should be applying email filters. A very important thing that I can actually do is I can apply email filters so that it will filter out unwanted traffic. There are certain signs a user can look into so that he can see that whether he is a victim of DDoS attack or not. The very first thing is you can see that there's some slow network performance and inability to access certain sites. Maybe some sites are accessible, but some sites are taking longer. Large amount of spam emails reaching the user's email account. So this is what the user who is a victim of DDoS attack should be concerned about. Now, what is coming next is a very simple thing, hacking. And as you can see, it's the act of gaining illegal access to a computer system. So the keyword illegal is very important. You cannot, if I just say gaining access, that is not going to be hacking, gaining illegal access, because sometimes the people are allowing the users to access the systems, they give them the authority. So that is not going to be hacking. But when you are accessing any of the resources without being given the rights, then that will be called hacking. And again, you should be how can you prevent that? The use of firewalls, the use of usernames and passwords, and you should be changing the passwords quite often, and you should be keeping very strong passwords. As we discussed right now, the password that can easily be hacked, the password that can easily be judged, found, is not a good option. We should be keeping such a password which is not easily guessable. Anti-hacking software is also an option which can be used so that it can stop the hackers from attacking your network, your PC. Malicious hacking is something that we should be aware of, we should be cautious about. But another hacking is called ethical hacking. What is ethical hacking? As the name implies, it occurs when companies authorize paid hackers to check out their security measures and test how robust their system is. Maybe in some situation they can see that how efficient their system is, and then what they do is they hire hackers, and they are called ethical hackers, and the activity is called ethical hacking. Malware, as the name implies, is one of the biggest risks, and this malware is composed of a number of things that you can see here. It's viruses, spyware, worms, Trojan horses, ransomware, and adware. Let's start with viruses. What you need to know, I mean, you have been hearing about the term viruses quite often, but one thing that you need to see is viruses are programs or program code that replicates or copies itself with the intention of deleting or corrupting files or causing a computer to malfunction. And sometimes the viruses are just there. They're not actually doing some harm, but they're annoying because they may open certain things. They may create some directories without your knowledge, and that is also going to be something that is not. I mean, we don't like viruses. Why should I be liking a virus attack at all? So that is what we need to be cautious about. But one thing that you need to see is viruses are always needing an active host. The active host program on the target computer or an operating system that has already been infected before they can actually run and cause harm. Just one thing, remember one thing, and that is the use of active host in the case of virus attack. On the contrary, if I talk about the worms are a type of standalone malware that can self-replicate. So this self-replication is something that is common between both viruses and worms. But you can see the intention is also to spread to other computer systems and corrupt whole networks. But you can see they don't need an active host. So what you can see here is the difference between worms and viruses is viruses need an active host, while worms do not need an active host to work, to do any damage. They remain inside the application, which allows them to move throughout the networks. In fact, worms replicate without targeting and infecting specific files on a computer. They rely on security failures within the network to permit them to spread unhindered. They don't need active hosts. They just spread very easily over the whole network. Worms frequently arrive as messages attachments, and only one user opening a worm-infected email could end up infecting the whole network. So you can see that this one is what happens. You open an attachment that has a worm and can affect the entire network. As with viruses, the same safeguard should be employed together with the running of an up-to-date antivirus program. Worms tend to be problematic because of the ability to spread through the network without any action from an end user, whereas viruses require each end user to somehow initiate the viruses. Now, this is what you can see. The main thing is active host needed in viruses and no active host is needed in the firewall in the case of worms. Trojan. A Trojan horse is a program which is often disguised as legitimate software, but with the malicious instructions embedded within it. A Trojan horse replaces all or part of the legitimate software with the intent of carrying out some harm to the user's computer system. So this is what you can see, although they are all examples of malware, but they are a little bit different from each other. And you can see in this case of Trojan horse, Trojan horse is a program which is disguised as a legitimate software, which is the original one, but it is not legitimate one. It is with a malicious intention, and it's going to be replacing all or part of the legitimate software. Now, what you can see here is they need to be executed by the end user and therefore usually arrive as an email attachment or are downloaded from an infected website. For example, they could be transmitted via a fake antivirus program that pops up on the user's screen claiming that their computer is infected and action needs to be taken. So why am I discussing it in detail? Because we keep on discussing worms or maybe viruses quite often, and maybe sometimes worms also. But this is what we all need to be aware of, that how Trojan horses are going to attack. Maybe something pops up on my screen or on my browser, and I, out of curiosity or maybe just to see that what is there, may click on that one, and that may be not a legitimate software, that can be a Trojan horse. So we should be very cautious about these things. Without authenticity, we should never be clicking on such things. Otherwise, we may be attacked by these malicious software. Since they are there to trick the end users, firewalls and other security systems are often useless, since the user can overdo them and initiate the running of the malware. So this is something that you can be very obvious, that you should be very cautious, that you should not be opening such things because they are really very dangerous. Spyware, as the name implies, another word for spyware is keylogger. So you can see it's software that gathers information by monitoring a user's activities carried out on their computer. They actually gather information which the user is doing through key presses, and these key presses are sent to the person who has originated the spyware. And normally their intention is to monitor and capture web browsing, other activities, and capture personal data, for example, bank account numbers, passwords, and credit card or details, etc. Spyware can be detected and removed by using anti-spyware. So just see the use of anti-spyware to stay away from spyware, the use of antivirus to stay away from virus attack, the use of anti-hacking software to stay away from hacking attack. So this is what you need to see, you need to remember in order to be able to answer accurately. Adware. Adware is the next malware. As you can see, it is at its least dangerous. It will attempt to flood an end user with unwanted advertising. Now, this is something that we can see. Sometimes a lot of advertising things pop up on my screen, which may redirect me to a website that contains promotional advertising. And what can happen is it can highlight it may or may not be dangerous. So you can see it can highlight a weakness in a user's security defenses. It may be hardware. It may be hard to remove because it defeats most anti-malware software. It hijacks a browser and creates its own default search requests. So that can be quite annoying, and that is what we should be cautious about. Ransomware, as the name implies, ransom. So what is it doing? Ransomware program that encrypt data on a user's computer and hold the data hostage. So I hope that you remember the term encrypt. Encrypt means to code, to change the data into a form in which it is becoming ununderstandable to the hackers. So what is happening in ransomware is it is going to encrypt the data on a user's computer and hold the data hostage, as the name implies, ransom. The cyber criminal waits until the ransom money is paid, and sometimes the decryption key is then sent to the user. It has caused considerable damage to some companies and individuals. So this ransom, as in real life, is dangerous. So same goes for the ransomware. Also, it can be leading to some sort of definitely disruption, because it is going to take your data, and it will only be releasing your data once you have paid a certain sum of money. Now, what happens is, when a ransomware is executed, it either encrypts the files straight away, or it waits for a while to determine how much of a ransom the victim can afford, the way it happens in real life. The malware can be prevented by the usual methods, like what can you do is by avoiding phishing, which is coming next. And but once it is executed, it is almost impossible to reverse the damage. So this is what you can see, and that we should be cautious about. Now, as far as the summary is concerned, if you really want, you can go through this summary. Present in table 5.2, that will give you a clear thing that how can you actually remember the terminologies of the malware. Now, phishing. This is something which is very interesting, that you can see phishing occurs when a cyber criminal sends out a legitimate looking email. And once you click on the email, you are taken to fake or a bogus website. So one thing that you need to see is phishing and pharming. They both are dangerous, but the difference between the two is a little bit different, and the middle and the end is the same. In phishing, what is happening? You are sent a legitimate looking email. You click on that one, and you are taken to a fake or a bogus website. On the contrary, if I talk about the pharming attack, what happens in pharming is it is malicious code installed on the user's computer system. So this is what is you should be cautious about. Is the difference is very clear. Phishing is a malicious an email attachment is sent to you which looks like the original one, and in the case of pharming, what happens is a malicious code is installed on a user's computer or an infected website, and then it is going to redirect the user to a fake or a bogus website without your knowledge, without your you aware of. It will take you to a fake or a bogus website. So this is what you need to be aware of. Now, moving on to going back to this one, there are numerous ways to help prevent phishing attacks. Users need to be aware of new phishing scams. It is important not to click on the best thing is do not click on an email that is not coming from a non-trusted source. That may look very, can say, interesting, but never ever click if it is not coming from a trusted source. It is important to run anti-phishing toolbars on browsers. Always look up for the HTTPS, the green padlock. This is something that you have already studied in 5.1, that always open the site that have an HTTPS or a padlock because they are the secured ones. Regular checks of online accounts is also advisable. Ensure an up-to-date browser. Be very wary of pop-ups and use the browser to block them if pop-ups get through your defenses. Don't click on cancel, since this can ultimately lead to a phishing or pharming site. So these are certain things that we should be cautious about in order to stay away from phishing attack. I hope that phishing and pharming is now clear. You are not going to treat them as same. Be cautious that what is phishing and what is pharming, and you'll be able to understand it very easily. Now, DNS cache poisoning. Now, what happens in it is every time a user types in a URL, which is the website, the browser contacts the DNS server, as you have studied earlier. IP address of the website will then be sent back to the browser. However, DNS cache poisoning changes the real IP to another one. I mean, that is what, as the name implies, is doing. It's poisoning. It's changing the original IP to a fake one, and then definitely you are taken to a fake or a bogus website. So this is what you should be very much cautious about, that whenever you think that the website that is opening is not the original one, because it is not containing the HTTPS or the padlock, it means you are not going to open it and you're going to close it immediately. Now, after phishing and pharming, what else we need to know is the social engineering. As the name implies, social engineering is what occurs when a cyber criminal creates a social situation that can lead to a potential victim dropping their guard. Like maybe they're going to create a situation where you think that you are attacked, and what you do is you drop the guard, and it involves the manipulation of people into breaking their normal security procedures and not follow the best practices. I mean, that happens even in real life also. I may get a phone call which says that something has happened, and out of maybe fear, I may be trapped by them, but in reality, that is just a trap. That is not the original one. How they do it, that is very important. Either they send incident message. As you can see, malicious links are embedded into the incident messages. For example, an important software upgrade relies on users' curiosity. The way I said curiosity, you may be curious to know that what is inside this, and you may click on that one, and then you are attacked. Scareware, for example, fake antivirus that looks like the real one. This is often done using a pop-up message that claims that the user's computer is infected with a virus, and the user is told they need to download the fake antivirus immediately, and that is going to be the fear. Maybe the user has a fear that my system is infected, and out of fear, maybe he can click on that one, and that may be taking him to that will be attacking him. That is dangerous. Emails or phishing scams, as we have discussed right now, the user is tricked by the apparent arguments of an email and opens a link in the email. This drives the browser to a fake or a bogus website. And this is because of the trust of well-known companies. Normally, the phishing attacks are, the phishing scams are based on some, maybe the banks or maybe some bigger investment companies, because the people rely on them and they don't look into this, and then they fall prey. Baiting. As you can see, the cyber criminal leaves a malware infected memory stick somewhere where it can be found. The finder picks it up and plugs it into the computer system just to see who it belongs to, and then it can lead to some sort of can say downloading the malicious software. And this is only done out of curiosity. Maybe I have something on my table, so I may also do the same thing just to find out, just to figure out to whom does it belong to. I can do the same, and I can be attacked by this form of social engineering. Phone calls, a very, very important one, a very, very common one that is being, we all can hear quite often nowadays. So-called IT professional calls a user on their mobile phones, claiming that their device has been compromised in some way. The user is advised to download some special software that allows the cyber criminal to take over the user's device, giving them access to personal information, and that is because of the fear. So this is something which is quite common, and that this phone calls sort of thing happens in real life also quite common, that we do get some phone calls and we are trapped, we are attacked by these phone calls. Now, how can I keep my data safe? The method is very simple. The very first thing is access level. Definitely not every person has the same access level. Maybe some people who are the administrators have full control. Maybe some users have control to a certain area. So this is what we need to know, that people who should be given access are decided by the administrator. They decide that who is going to have access to what data. Now, this is what we need to be very much aware of. Access level is one important thing that can be used to keep my data safe from security threats. What else I can do is anti-malware. As we discussed, I can use anti-spyware, I can use antivirus, I can use anti-hacking. So this is what is one of the means that I can employ to keep my data safe from unauthorized access. Authentication. It is very important. Authentication, as the name implies, refers to the ability of a user to prove who they are. There are three common factors used in authentication: someone you know, something you know, like for example, a password or PIN, something you have, for example, a mobile phone or tablet, something which is unique to you, for example, biometrics. So these are the three factors which are used in authentication. Now, as far as passwords are concerned, passwords are definitely going to be one mean through which you can keep your data safe. And passwords can be in the form of text password, as we normally use, and it can be in the form of biometrics as well. Biometric is also a form of password. Now, moving on to the next one, what should a strong password contain? This is what I have discussed right now, so I hope that you all know it very well. But passwords is a very important mean that I can employ in order to provide authentication, that only the authorized people are going to access the details. And one thing that you have seen is whenever passwords are being entered, they are always hidden, and they are shown as your asterisk there, because then until and unless you have just chosen the option of showing the passwords. Biometrics, what does it involve? Biometrics involve fingerprint scanning, retina scanning, face recognition, and voice recognition. And as you can see, this is a very important mean that you can use to keep your data safe. By the way, just to tell you, what you need to know is the benefits and the drawbacks of all the biometric techniques. Let me just go through them very quickly. Biometric technique, fingerprint scan, as you can see, one of the most developed biometric techniques, very easy to use. A relatively small storage requirement for the biometric data is needed. But as far as drawbacks are concerned, for some people, it is very intrusive since it's still related to criminal identification. It can make mistakes. The skin is dirty or damaged. Now, this is something that happens quite often. For example, if my finger is cut due to any reason, then maybe my fingerprint scanning will not be very effective, and that may result in some sort of problems. Retina scanning, very high accuracy. There's no known way to replicate a person's retina. Now, this is what you can see. No two people's retina is ever going to be same, and this is Allah's great blessing. It is intrusive. It can be relatively slow to verify. The retina scanning with stored scanning, very expensive to install and set up. You may have seen biometric machines which are present at different locations to either record the attendance or other stuff. Face recognition, non-intrusive method, relatively inexpensive technology. You may have experienced it for the smart card as well. You may have used the biometric there. Now, as far as face recognition is concerned, it can be affected by changes in lighting, the person's hair, change in age, and if this person is wearing the glasses. So that may happen that your face is not recognized, and this is the drawback of face recognition. Voice recognition, quite common, non-intrusive, verification takes less than 5 seconds, relatively inexpensive, and this form of biometrics is even available nowadays in the mobile phones. A person's voice can be easily recorded and used for unauthorized access. Low accuracy as illness. An illness such as a cold can change a person's voice, and that is going to be a little difficult thing to handle in case the person's voice has changed a bit. Now, this is something that we can see, the biometrics things. Now, there are a few examples, applications, as you can see, the one that I discussed with you. If you just go through it, it's very simple one, because it's dealing with the concept of retina scanning, it's dealing with the concept of microprocessor, which you have studied, the role of ADC, as you are aware of, because the readings are analog in nature, so they need an ADC analog to digital converter to be processed by the microprocessor, and this is how it is going to be stored, and then the particular action will be then taken. Two-step verification. I mean, this is something which we are already aware of. It requires two methods of authentication to verify who a user is. Now you can see it is used predominantly when a user makes an online purchasing using a credit card or a debit card. So now this is something that is very, very much needed in order to ensure that whatever the person is doing, I mean, this is something that you have seen even nowadays happening in our email systems as well. So this is a very important thing that you can see to improve security. An 8-digit PIN called a one-time password or OTP is sent back to the email or a text message to the mobile phone. The mobile phone has already been registered by the person if they have done it, and only if they have suggested that they are the ones who are using it, only then they will be able to work. Otherwise, it will not be able to work further. Automatic software updates, a very important thing that we need to see, because sometimes the software is updated and we need to ensure that software updates are always there so that we can see that whether the system is upgraded and nothing malicious is ever going to attack my PC. So this is also an important thing that we need to work on. Checking the spelling and tone of communication URLs. When emails are sent to you, there are 3 actions you will always need to take before opening them or activating any links in them. This is what you can, I'm reiterating, checking out the spelling in the email, carefully checking out the tone used in the email message. If it is actually something that you think is fishy, never ever open it. Now, there are 5 things to look out for. The email address itself, the tone of the email, or the bad spelling of the words is a clear indication that it is coming from a non-trusted source. Now, after that, what else? The misspelling of the domain name. If you don't know the domain, only then you'll be able to know that the spelling is wrong. Suspicious link. And last thing is other errors to look out that for, just as maybe plain spelling mistakes. So this is what you should be cautious about. Last but not the least is firewall. As the name implies, firewall is basically something that is either software or hardware. It is between the user's computer and the external network or the internet, and its job is to filter out the incoming and outgoing traffic. And in this, what it does is it is going to examine the traffic, that whether it's coming from a trusted source. If the IP address is not in the list, then definitely that URL or that link is blocked. The data is not following the criteria, falling on the criteria that the firewall is going to block the traffic, and it can be actually meant to be used to log in all the incoming and the outgoing traffic. So this is a very important thing that can be utilized, and we may have firewall installed as a piece of hardware or a software as well. Another important feature of a firewall, as you can see here, is its job is to help prevent viruses or hackers entering the user's computer or the network, or the internal network. So this is what you can see here. The main job of firewall is to see that whatever is coming in is the trusted site, trusted sources, trusted IP addresses, and definitely it is going to help prevent the viruses or hackers entering the user's computer. The user is warned if some software or this system is trying to access an external data source, for example, an automatic software upgrade, and the user is given the option of allowing it to go ahead or request is to that access is denied. Now, this what we discussed right now, firewall can be a hardware interface, and in that case, it is called gateway, although not mentioned here, but this is something that we can remember. Alternatively, this firewall can be software, as we may have it all installed on my PC as well as a part of the operating system. You may have seen such thing on your PC as well. Now, although we have tried our level best to use firewall, but definitely since still there are some circumstances where the firewall is not going to prevent the harmful traffic. What is it? It cannot prevent individuals on internal networks using their own hardware devices, for example, mobile phones or smartphones to bypass the firewall. It may happen. Employees' misconduct or carelessness cannot be controlled by firewalls. For example, control of a password or user accounts. And thirdly, users on standalone computers can choose to disable the firewall, leaving their computers open to harmful traffic, because definitely firewall is going to make the system a little slower. So out of this, maybe the people can do this thing that they are going to disable the firewall, and that may result in some harmful attack. All of these issues require management control or personal control on a single computer to ensure that firewall is still allowed to do the job. Next one is proxy. As you can see, proxy, we are aware of this term quite often. We keep on hearing this term quite often. So proxy server acts as an intermediate between the users and a web server. So you can see the diagram is telling you the definition very clearly. The user's computer is mine, and the proxy server is sitting in between. The web browser is going to send a request to the proxy. The request is forwarded to the web server. The web server is going to send back the response to the proxy. And from the proxy, the response is filtered. What are the features of proxy? If I just go through them, you can see many of the features are the same as those of the firewall. Allows internet traffic to be filtered. It is possible to block access to a website. Keeps users' IP addresses secret, which improves security. If the internet traffic is valid, access to the web server is allowed. If the internet traffic is invalid, access to the web server is denied. It is possible to block requests from certain IP addresses, the way you have seen right now. That was the feature of firewall. Prevents direct access to a web server by sitting in between. If an attack is launched, it hits the proxy server instead. This helps to prevent hacking or DOS attacks. Used to direct invalid traffic away from the web servers, which gives additional protection. By using the feature known as cache, which you have already studied in the term hardware, it is possible to speed up access to the information from a website. When the website is first visited, the home data page is stored, and the proxy is going to open it faster. And lastly, it is written proxy server also acts as a firewall. As you can see, some of the features discussed in the beginning are actually related with the firewall as well. Now, moving to another topic, which is actually the last topic, is going to be like privacy settings. Is something that you know very well. That privacy settings are the controls available on web browsers, social networks, and the other website that you can use to limit who has access to your data. I mean, this is something which you all are aware of. You want to restrict some people to see your information. You want everyone to see your information. You want public to be made public, or you want only to be seen by the family members, or to close family members, or to close friends. This all is your privacy settings. Now, last but very important one is SSL, Secure Socket Layer. It's a protocol. And we have discussed this under the heading of HTTPS. We have seen the padlock just recently. We have talked about it in the chapter beginning as well. This is what is happening, that when a user logs onto a website, SSL, what its job is to encrypt the data. Only the user's computer and the web server are able to make sense of what is being transmitted. A user will know if SSL is being applied when they see HTTPS or the padlock. This is something that is being discussed. Once again, this padlock or this HTTPS indicates it's coming from a trusted source. As you can see, HTTPS secure, SS is there. If HTTP is there, it means it is a sort of warning to you that be cautious. Whatever you are doing is going to be your discussion. It has nothing to do with us. Figure shows what happens when a user wants to access a secure site and sends data to it. The user's browser sends a message that it can connect with the required website. The browser then requests that the web server identifies itself. Just say that, who are you? So then what happens is the web server responds by sending a copy of its SSL certificate. Who am I? The SSL certificate will be sent by the web server, identifying itself. After that, it is received by the browser. The browser is going to authenticate that the certificate is the authentic one. And once it is able to authenticate, then the message is received, and the web server is going to acknowledge the whole acknowledgement will take place, and the two-way communication will begin. So this is a very important topic that you have to prepare. And then SSL certificate, example of an SSL would be used, as you can see, online banking, online shopping, when sending software to a restricted list of users, sending and receiving emails using cloud storage, intranet and extranet, as well as internet, definitely. VoIP, like when we are making video calls or we are making a phone call, use instant messaging, and when making use of social networking site. So I hope that this is quite clear. You have understood this well. Best of luck for this topic. Allah Hafiz.